Alright, what is going on, guys? My name is Leon Master. Welcome back to another Overwatch League video. And today, guys, I'm going to bring you guys a pretty fun video to bring. It is the best signing every team made in the offseason. Basically ranking almost every signing, but one signing on every team. I'm going to be listing the best signing they made in the offseason. And it's going to be an interesting topic. I kind of changed it up. Normally I go in alphabetical order like it is on the Overwatch League website. But I went and do a custom wheel and made it all different. So it's all surprising for me and also for you. Now, I will say there's going to be no LA Valiant in this. It's obvious because LA Valiant hasn't made any signings yet. There is leak signings, but I really want to wait till those are official because I think it just makes a little bit more sense to do that. So to start off with the first team, I'm going to be talking about the Guangzhou Charge, and the best signing they made in the offseason for me has to be Kariv. With Shu being a huge loss with their offseason run, you know, the Shu going to Los Angeles Gladiators, they needed a replacement that is kind of like Shu, but obviously they can't find an exact copy. So they got Kariv, and Kariv comes in almost near Shu's level, especially being on a new team like this because his Toronto run was really not that good. Now he's going to be on a whole new team, really good coaching as well, good players around him. He's going to be that top flex support we know from him back in LA Valiant, and I think it's going to bring into the Guangzhou Charge. Now to the London Spitfire. This is the most recent signing from them. It is Shax, which I think there is many options to choose from their previous if they didn't have Shax, but Shax was an easy standout for me to pick. Shax is probably their best player on this team right now, especially when it comes to the DPS area. Shax brings a fantastic Tracer, Kree, Widow, a fantastic hit scan all around that he brings to this team, like he was on the LA Valiant and also in his previous days on like contenders. So Shax's going to bring a lot to this team with the London Spitfire. Definitely going to carry out some wins with this team, and definitely a huge W for the London Spitfire in the offseason. Then onto the New York Excelsior. This one was also a standout for me. There's also a lot of picks for the New York Excelsior, and this one has got to be Ivy for me. Ivy was definitely a standout player last year in the Philadelphia Fusion. We had doubts of him. We all thought he was going to be on the bench, and Ivy ended up coming through as one of the best flex support DPS players all of Season 3. His flexibility was crazy. Definitely one of the best all around when it came to his DPS. Ivy is definitely going to bring that to the New York Excelsior, and I'm very excited to see what he does with this team, a new team all around. Basically, a whole revamp of the NYXL roster, being beside Guangzhou as his DPS partner. I'm very excited to see how Ivy does, and definitely a standout for the best signing New York Excelsior made in the offseason, 100%. Then onto the Washington Justice. This one was also a hard one. You know, you have Mag, you have Closer, who's looking good, and you also have the pick I chose, Fury, which I think Fury, you know, one of the most consistent players of all time in Overwatch League, one of the best off tanks of all time as well in the Overwatch League on all the off tanks, which is something very rare to find. If you have an off tank that can play all the off tanks at a very high level, and Fury is that, back from Season 1 on the Atlanta Spitfire and also till today with the Washington Justice, and he's going to bring a lot to this team. We've already seen it in the open scrim with him and Mag. They are already a top duo in the league, probably will be instantly into this next season. I 100% believe that will happen. Fury's still going to be on the top of the top ratings when it comes to stats. Fury's going to bring a lot to this team. You know, you still have Decay. He's a fantastic player. Like, this team's going to be crazy, and I definitely think Fury's a big part of that, because if they didn't have Fury, it will be Rhea, and I think Washington Justice will be rated a little bit lower if they didn't have Fury. So where they are placed now with a lot of power rankings people have, it's probably because of Fury. Then onto the Shanghai Dragons. They've made a decent amount of signings, but the big one has got to be Fate. Fate coming into this team, being a replacement for Fearless, definitely going to bring a lot to this team on top of that, because, you know, Fate, he did a fantastic job on the Florida Mayhem, you know, upgrading his own play, being very aggressive with his Winston, with his Reinhardt, with his Orisa. He definitely upgraded his play style being on Florida Mayhem. Now he's going to the Shanghai Dragons, being coached under Moon once again like he was on the LA Valiant. Going to be playing beside the fantastic players that is on that team with Void. This team's going to make him look better, and Fate's also going to make the Shanghai Dragons look better with Moon coaching him on top of this. Then onto the Boston Uprising. I had to wait for a few signs before I could actually make this list, and they happened, and I had to write Valentine down. Valentine's going to bring a lot to this team, a lot of flexibility even on top of this with Valentine in here. If they didn't have Valentine, probably would have been Color Hex, but also you can look at Faith coming in, being a huge upgrade over Halo, and they needed an upgrade over Halo. They got Faith, so if you want to argue Faith over Valentine, I get that, but for me, it's got to be Valentine, because Color Hex, you know, was very up and down player, more on the downside of players when it comes to his DPS area, and I think Valentine comes in, bringing a lot more than Color Hex did. Now, I will say there probably will be a tiny bit of downsides, like Valentine may not play all the hit scans compared to Color Hex, but Valentine's still there, and so was I'm 37. So Valentine's going to have a huge impact on this team, and on top of that with Faith, but I wrote down Valentine for me. Then you have the Seoul Dynasty. This one was an instant pick for me. You have Onmo, you have 2U, and I had to pick 2U. It was the easy one. You know, Seoul Dynasty suffered of off-tank issues all season long. They needed an off-tank. They had one, which was Michelle, but they now have 2U, which looked really good last year for the Seoul Dynasty. And 2U made Seoul Dynasty look like they had a lot of confidence in game. And I think 2U is going to bring the exact same to next season for the Seoul Dynasty of his off-tank play. He plays all the off-tanks at a high level, and playing beside Gesture or Marvel, this team's going to get way more wins than it was last year, and hopefully they get even just as far as they did last year to the grand finals, and they do better with 2U just being in this team. Now to the Philadelphia Fusion. This one was a weird one to write down because, you know, there's a huge leak right now of Rascal joining the team, and if that is true, it's Rascal, but not official just yet. But there's between Mono and Shockwave. I had to pick someone that's going to be starting the whole time and having a way more impact. It has to be Mono. I kind of wanted to write Shockwave down, but we don't know what his place is just yet. He's obviously going to be a replacement for Hisu, but Mono comes in, and he's going to bring something to this team. Very interesting. You know, could be a new play style, could be something new with this team. But I think Mono, under this Philadelphia Fusion squad, under the coaching this team has, I think we're going to see a new Mono come through. Very aggressive player and just help this team by a little bit. Now, is this a downgrade compared to Sato and Fury? Now we have Mono and Poco. We'll see. You know, they still have great coaches, and they could look the exact same, if not better, you know, with Shockwave still being on this team on top of that. So Mono had to be the best signing for me for the Philadelphia Fusion, but if it is Rascal, if Rascal's getting signed, it is going to be Rascal, 100%. Now onto the Vancouver Titans. This one was a very easy one for me to pick. It is Taro. Now, I know we haven't seen this guy play since 2019, but here's the thing of Taro. With him being in this roster, just his presence there, just him being there, fixes his team with some issues. Dalton was forced on the flex DPS, which he never played in the past, never in contenders. He was more of a hit scan player, and now Taro being there puts Dalton on the hit scan, and Taro being there on top of that brings the flex DPS. And I have seen and heard great things of Taro. Probably going to potentially be a top flex DPS coming into next season, so that makes Vancouver look a lot better. And him just being there just changes everything, and I think that's great for Taro to be there. Then on to the Houston Outlaws. Another easy one for me was Happy. Happy was a top player for 2 seasons on the Guangzhou Charge, one of the best hit scan players for those seasons in general, with his Widowmaker, with his Tracer, his McCree, potentially some of his Sombra here and there. Like, Happy's going to bring a lot to this Houston Outlaws. Now, are they going to get a lot of wins because of Happy? It's going to be tough, you know, with how their team's looking like and all that in general. But Happy, I hope, makes the Houston Outlaws fans happy, because Happy is going to bring a lot to this team with his hit scan play. Probably going to get a huge plays here and there with this team, get those potential picks that is going to make them win some fights, win some games maybe, and I'm excited for that. Then on to the Atlanta Reign. The most recent pickup from this team has got to be Kai. I was still worried with the Atlanta Reign. Now that they picked up Kai, I have a little bit more hope with this team. Now, this isn't going to save him. Kai being there is not going to save him, but Kai is definitely an upgrade over Edison by miles. Kai's already proved himself with the LA Valiant that he was a top hit scan player in the league last year. Very consistent, very high performances on the top of stats and all around. This guy's going to bring a lot to this Atlanta Reign team. Definitely a standout for me when it came to the best signing. Then on to the Dallas Fuel. You can argue with this one all you want. You know, you could say Fearless, you can say maybe Sparkle, Xe, but for me, it's always got to be Hanbin. Hanbin has always been an instant pick for me when it comes to this team. Hanbin was probably near that top 3, maybe top 5 off tanks last year, and you could see why. His Sigma was top tier. He's an insane playmaker when it comes to the Diva, and even the Zarya, we get to see a lot more this next season. So Hanbin is changing this Dallas Fuel team. I know it's kind of the pairs, but you still have those additions with Repel, Jexay, and on top of that, Fearless. I'm excited to see what Hanbin does. He's definitely a playmaker when it comes to the off-tank role. Then on to the Chengdu Hunters. Another standout for me has got to be Gaga. And the reason it's for Gaga, I think a lot of people know my reasons, is because Gaga was one of the best Chinese main tank players and contenders, and he's bringing that to the Chengdu Hunters, which, if y'all know, Chengdu Hunters has a lot of main tank problems. They've tried to sign main tanks here and there. They did not come through. But Gaga, I promise you, will come through. He's going to be better than Aming by miles, and he's going to help this team get many, many wins. He's going to change the look of Hunters all around, and I say just get excited for this guy. His main tank play is definitely out of this world compared to Aming and everything else. Definitely going to help this team by a lot. Then on to the San Francisco Shock. There's also many you could pick here as well. But for me, it had to be Glister. You know, coming in as a basically a replacement for Aunts, and Glister comes in, already had those high tier performances on London Spitfire before he could have, obviously with limited resources, but now he's coming into the Shock, a move no one expected, gonna be under Krusty, gonna be around Smurf, Choi, FD God, Violet. He's gonna be around these players, and Glister, we'll see a new Glister for sure next season. Like, we're gonna see Glister dominate on the Widow, dominate on the Tracer. Everything this guy plays is gonna look 10 times better next season because he's just on the Shock. That's all it is. Glister already looked good last year. Now that he's on this team, is gonna look good. And you could definitely argue FD God. I could probably argue that as well. But Glister was a standout for me to pick for this signing. Then onto the Toronto Defiant. Also a lot of other picks, basically a whole new roster. But for me, it had to be Sato, which was a main tank player that was dominant all year long last year. Obviously, it was a team that really fit him. And I do think this next team for the Toronto Defiant will also fit Sato. And that's why I kind of wrote him down. Sato is a very aggressive player. And if you look at the Toronto Defiant, a very aggressive roster. I think we'll see a really good Sato come out next year. Now, is it going to be a better year or a worse year? I don't know. But KDG being there and him building this team makes me think Sato's going to look even better next year with the Toronto Defiant. And I hope that comes through. And he was definitely a standout for me to pick. Then on to the Florida Mayhem. An upgrade we all wanted to see on this team, it is Slime. Slime comes in as a new main support player for the Florida Mayhem. Definitely a massive upgrade over Chris, and also brings a lot of shot calling to this team. His main support play was at the top of the top back in Season 2. Obviously, he was benched in Season 3 on the Seoul Dynasty, but now he's on the Florida Mayhem. Being coached under Kuki, playing beside these fantastic players of Gargoyle, Gangnam Jin, Slime's going to come through, and he's definitely going to upgrade this team by a lot. Then on to the Paris Eternal. At first, I picked Oni God, but now after watching the Steel Series tournament, it had to be Khan. This guy was one of the best players for Paris Eternal in the Steel Series tournament, and we already heard word from many players, many coaches, all around the scene that Khan was going to be the best part on the Paris Eternal. I had to wait and see it on the Steel Series tournament, and yes, they are very correct on this. His bat play was top tier, and I'm going to expect that with everything else when it comes to supports in Overwatch. So I think Khan definitely gonna impress a lot of people next season, and if Paris Eternal does a whole new roster the year after, he's definitely going to be picked up. At least I hope he is, because Khan is going to help this team out by a lot, help this team's play all around, and I'm so excited to see what he does on Paris Eternal. Then I'll take the Hangzhou Spark. I had to pick Bernard. Bernard's also going to change this team with all the new changes they made as well. Liga, you have Takoyaki, you have MCD. Bernard was an easy one to pick. Very aggressive off-tank player, and he's going to play really well beside Gujue and the players he has around him. And he already dominated last year, being one of the best off-tanks on the Spitfire, which is almost kind of feels like a hard thing to do back on that team if you look at it, because that team was very up and down. At the bottom of the standings, but Bernard and Glister were easy standouts, and already coming into that season, they were already standouts on that team. And Bernard impressed everyone, and I think he's going to do the same thing on the Spark, if not look even better. Then on to the last team, the Los Angeles Gladiators, and this one was an easy pick, and it is Moth. A back-to-back champion on the San Francisco Shock, one of the best shot callers of all time in Overwatch, and one of the best main support players of all time, if not the best right now. He's joining the Los Angeles Gladiators. He's no longer on the Shock. That's all I got to say. One of the best players of all time that will go down in the books, it feels like, in the Overwatch League. Joining the Los Angeles Gladiators, doing almost feels like a whole new revamp on this team, with Muse being there. You have Kevster, who's kind of feels like a new still, and you have Shu. Like, Moth's going to bring a lot to this team. Definitely going to upgrade this team from him just being there. And that's all I got to say of Moth. You have a winner on your team, and he wants to win with this team on top of this. All around, that's got to be it for me, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have your own opinions down below, make sure you can put them down there. Anyways, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to stay more in tune with Overwatch League news and Overwatch League stuff in general, don't forget to subscribe down below. Also, don't forget to join my Discord down below as well. And don't forget to follow my Twitter and my Twitch. And don't forget to hit that bell. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. And I'll see you guys on the next one.